Hey guys, welcome back to Team 1D. And in this video, I'm going to be talking over 10 unique diabetes tips that you probably haven't heard before. And so these tips are kind of like going to be tips to like improve your daily life with diabetes. And maybe like things are like a bit more complicated or nuanced than just like checking your blood sugar or counting carbs. And so things are a little bit deeper than that. So first would be to rotate your sites strategically, specifically for your pod, but also for your CGM as well. So for this, I highly recommend doing like some sort of sheet tracker or like some sort of pod or CGM tracker that can track all the sites that you do. For example, like a Google Sheet, Google Form, and then putting all your pod sites, and then putting dates for them, which are easily doable in Google Sheets. Or put all your sites there, and then you can just look at how many days it's been since for your last site, and then recommend spacing over 20 days before going back to a site and revisiting it, so you don't get those scar tissue buildup forming, because this is kind of a major problem with diabetes with the pods that happen after a while, the scar tissue buildup. So this is a good way to avoid that scar tissue from building up. So make sure to have like, I recommend like over 6 different rotations or 8, and then having a Google form to make sure that you're rotating these consistently in a proper manner in order to stop the scar tissue from forming. And for CGM, I think it's not as important, but it still might be good to add it into this pod site rotation just to kind of not interfere with the pod site tracker system, and to make it so you have a like clear and organized plan on what you're gonna put on and when. And for this, I have actually a system myself, so I could link that down in the description, so you guys can use that for like an example and kind of get inspiration off that or use it for yourself. My second tip would be to kind of have snacks, like predictive snacks, before exercising. For example, there's something called a UCAN bar, or and even UCAN like little squeeze pouches. I recommend like looking into this. They're kind of expensive, but anything like that like doesn't spike your blood sugar, but kind of keeps it elevated for a while, slowly increase your blood sugar, is really good to do. I've seen before workouts or before just exercising, before running. So just taking like 10 to 15 carbs that's like not fast acting 20 minutes before a workout is something that's good, because then you, instead of waiting until your like blood sugar drops, like nosedives in the middle of workout, you can actually prevent that nosedive from happening if you just take some carbs before the workout, because if you already know you're going to drop. So for me especially, I always drop during workouts. So then what I do, or like exercising or like runs, so what I do is like I'm going to swim for like 30 minutes or an hour or whatever. I'll just eat 10 15 carbs or like a bar or something like 20 minutes before workout or exercise, and that would keep me like perfectly fine doing the exercise. And this definitely helps, in my opinion, to prevent those lows and prevent having to deal with and hassle and check your blood sugar and having to like stop doing your exercise and fix the low and stuff. So it kind of like eases your mind and also helps your body. Something else another tip I would do is to temperature proof your insulin. For example, like for me, I have a pen like when I go to school. So what I would do is I would keep that pen in a cooling pouch. And so I highly recommend people get a cooling pouch if they use pens, or even if you use pumps as a backup. If you have like a backup pen, I would definitely put this pen in a pouch, because they can go bad, especially if the temperature where you live gets hot or gets cold. The pens can get really bad, and it would be really annoying to have that to use a bad pen when your blood sugar is already high and it just keeps going up because the pen doesn't work. So yeah, what I use specifically is something called a Frio, or there's also other cooling devices that you can use. And yeah, they're really handy when you're traveling, when you're doing sports, just in general, when you're going around. They're just a game changer in my opinion, and I would recommend everyone to get one, especially to traveling. I'm moving on to the fourth tip, having like a sleep ready diabetes setup or kit. I recommend doing this, like having night kit with like, I guess, glucose tablets, water, a meter, like a blood sugar checker, and a charger for your devices as well. I recommend doing all these just to be prepared for when your blood sugar drops during sleep, because it's bound to happen eventually. And this definitely helps like be aware and be awake and just be organized and not fumble around like when you're half asleep. And it will definitely save you time in the long run, and save you a lot of like annoyance when you wake up like half asleep and are having to like go all the way somewhere and get tablets and check your blood sugar. And yeah, it's just much easier to have it right next to you and be prepared for when it happens. Next, I would recommend bolusing yourself instead of letting the Omnipod 5 or whatever algorithm you use slowly bring you down. oftentimes my blood sugar is like 250 going straight up or going high really fast, or above 200 going high really fast. I wouldn't recommend just waiting until the pod brings you down, because it might not be to bring you down for the next hours and hours. What I'd recommend doing is to go into the bolus section of your pump and just manually bolus a couple units of insulin yourself, because that will help the pod bring your blood sugar down much faster than it would do by itself, because oftentimes these pods have a maximum setting. For example, the Omnipod 5 has a maximum setting of like 0.2 per 5 minutes, which is oftentimes really low if my blood sugar is like above 200 and going up really fast. So I would just give myself like 2 or 3 units to bring myself down, and I would highly recommend doing this if your blood sugar is like actually like high and it doesn't show signs of dropping. Another thing I recommend doing to do with CGMs and pods is to look at your trend arrow and to kind of look at your entire graph when you're looking at your CGM readings, and not just your blood sugar. For example, your blood sugar might be 90 or 80 or even 100, which is perfectly fine, even optimal. But if you look at your graph or your trend arrows, it might be going straight down, and it might be nosediving. So what I'd highly recommend doing is actually clicking onto the Dexcom app or whatever CGM you're using and looking at the specific Dexcom data or CGM data to make sure that like my blood sugar is actually fine and I'm actually like good to, I guess, do whatever I'm going to do, and to kind of stop your blood sugar from tanking or from rising too quickly and being like set off by that and put off by that. The next thing I would recommend doing is to pre-bolus before meals, and to also use the extended bolus feature. So not only pre-bolus but also extended bolus. And I would use these for different scenarios. For example, the pre-bolus would be handy if you're eating that would immediately spike your carbs, like spike your blood sugar. So maybe fast carbs that instantly act, such as cereal, because cereal is something that immediately elevates your blood sugar. So I would say that having pre-bolus like 20 to 15 minutes before eating the cereal would be a good thing to prevent your blood sugar from spiking as much, as it would cause the insulin to line up better with the cereal. And for example, when you're eating fries, I would recommend doing a extended bolus, because this would kind of match up with the fries, as the fries are kind of fatty and they would keep your blood sugar elevated for a longer period of time. For tip number 8, I would recommend using the temp basal or manual adjustments whenever you're sick or when you have like stress for like exam or stress in general. This is because in these periods of times, like when you're having exam, when you're stressed, when you're sick, your stress and your sickness actually increases your blood sugar even if you haven't eaten. So increasing your basal rate or increasing your like manually adjusting your insulin rate would cause you to like receive more insulin, and so it would counteract the raising blood sugar that you would experience from the sickness or from the stress. And so this would kind of like help you have better blood sugar levels during times of stress and like times of exams and sicknesses, which would also just help you in general and like make this sickness and the exam like feel less demanding. So for tip number 9, what I recommend doing is reusing your CGM data and all of your data in general. And so weekly, if not bi-weekly or monthly, I recommend looking at your CGM data, because they actually do publish like full data that you can look at. And based on this, you can see like what went wrong during the week. Maybe I have to adjust my insulin rates for specific times in the morning or specific times. Or maybe it always spikes during lunch or always drops after I go to the gym. So I have to kind of change stuff based on patterns that I see. So looking at these patterns can definitely help you kind of be able to predict and fix problems that are going on in your life and kind of manage your blood sugar in a better way, for sure. My last tip, tip number 10, is to create a diabetes like go bag or a bag that you can travel around with. This would have backup insulin, for example, like a pen, which I use. That would be in a Frio. Also like syringes or pods, batteries, like power banks are a good thing to have for when your phone runs out of battery, because my phone always runs out of battery and it's kind of annoying to have the CGM not have data or readings. Also a new CGM sensor in case it fails, and low snacks. And I would have one of these at your school and then one of them in your car or when you're going on trips, and just to have in general in your car. And so these will definitely be helpful if something like fails midday or if something goes wrong in general. So yeah, that's about it for all of the 10 unique diabetes tips that I kind of found living with diabetes. And yeah, thanks for watching. I hope you guys subscribe, leave a like if you guys enjoyed the video.